Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Bald Explorer Live. It's 4 o'clock here in the UK. It may be a different time where you are. Probably is. And it's a Monday, and so we have another reading with me, the old Voby One-Eyed Kenobi. And we are continuing with our look and examination of In Search of England by HV Morton. And a thoroughly good read it has been so far. Been thinking about the next book in the series of what to read. And I've got this book I ordered this as a interesting book. This is called The Wisdom of the Fields by H.J. Massingham. And I don't know, I need to just have a look at it. When I read about it, it sounded like it might be an interesting book to read. It's sort of, again, when was this published? Hang on, let's have a look. 45. I seem to have a thing about reading books in the 40s. So I don't know, but this may or may not be a suitable thing for us to read, but it may be. This is a book not only for all interested in the countryside and the welfare of our rural community, but for all lovers of England. Every page underlines vigorously Mr. H.J. Massingham's deep concern with present-day tendencies of our rural and national economy. It begins with a lively study of the great Englishman William Cobbett and his all-important meaning for us here today. And there follows various chapters which give personal descriptions of certain present-day craftsmen in villages and small towns, wheelwrights, village carpenters and the like, still practising their crafts in a machine age that maintain Cobbett's tradition as it appears in Cottage Economy. So it could be an interesting book. I don't know. It'll be very different to do, but it's I'm trying to keep to the theme in my search, the quest for England. This is In Search of England, obviously. Different books about that, so maybe it is. Julia will no doubt turn up at some point, but she popped over for lunch. I've been out this morning and doing some filming. She popped over for lunch because I told her there was a parcel for her, so she hot-footed over here. Brought little Joseph. She was very thrilled. She's going to talk about that on the Wednesday Vobe show when she's here, and yes, she did very much appreciate it, Fiona, very much so. And she's just on her way back now, so that's why she's oh, here she is, there we go, look, here she comes, she's just got in. So how exciting is that? So yeah, we're a couple of minutes after 4. Lovely to see you. Here is a refreshing glug of cold water. So, where the hell did we get to? We were on chapter 7, if I remember rightly, part 4. Oh, and he's heading up to Shrewsbury. Sorry about my glasses being a bit wonky. Where the Severn flings a lazy arm round the fields south of Shrewsbury, I came on men digging a trench within hailing distance of the by-road. Trench digging, as this generation knows well, can be one man's most significant actions and must therefore always attract the eyes of the thoughtful. I observed several wise-looking, bespectacled men standing on the parapet of the trench, gazing earnestly at each spadeful of earth as it came out of the mysterious depths. "Ha-ha!" I said to myself, with a hand on the brake. "Here is a pretty story for a fine morning. Unless my map is all wrong, this is Roxeter. Or, as I prefer to call it, Uriconium or Vericonium. And these men are, or I am no judge of men, professors and students of archaeology, tickling the rough old spine of Rome. This was magic earth. Those potatoes that grow insecurely beyond the trenches were trying to cover up one of Rome's bad bargains. A city built 1,856 years ago that lived for about 500 years and died violently, but during its life, a little stage on which was played on England's first historic drama. Hello to James. Oh, sorry, I haven't said hello to everybody. I do beg your pardon. Hello to everybody, by the way. Hello to English Andy, to Fiona Hammond, to Adrian, to Ernie's Fastest Milkman, to Graham Roffey, to Steve G, James Poulton. Good afternoon. Listening to the podcast on Sunday, it sounds like you may build the Hanging Gardens of Babylon at your house in Worthing. Well, yes, may do. Edward Moulding, good afternoon to you. Yes, so it was indeed Uriconium, the white town in the woodland. On the edge of the trench lay bits of that sealing wax, red Simeon pottery, which they used to bring in great galley loads from Gaul, yellow handles of amphorae, thin red wafer tiles, which the legions knew how to bake as hard as steel. Radiating from the trench were other trenches and deep pits in which lay the heating rooms of the Roman baths, the foundations of walls, and the most impressive of all, the roots of a row of stone pillars which once upheld the portico of Uriconium's public buildings. Now, when a man stands on the edge of a pit in which they are digging up Roman Britain, the tiny fragments of red tile, the broken pots and the brown bones of men and beasts and the ruined walls, they should fly together and form a picture in their minds, a picture 1,000 years old, but alive. Uriconium was founded before the year of AD 68, said one of the diggers, by the 4th Legion, which was soon afterwards recalled to Rome. The year AD 68. Nero was lighting the Colosseum in Rome with the bodies of the first saints. Men were still living who had heard the Sermon on the Mount, and these fields, Britain. The Britain of that day is a mist which blows aside a moment to show us vast forests and the wild tribes watching the Roman roads as they grew mile after mile under the picks of the legions. When the mist parts, we see the white key towns of Roman Britain standing up behind their walls in pillar and portico. Something new in Britain. Little imitations of Rome, torches on the wild hillsides lit from that great flame of civilization which did not die on the sword of the Hun, but lived on in the church and laid the foundations of the modern world. In the mist we hear the creak of galley oars in river and estuary, and in the mist we hear the war horns of the legions lowing like cows, telling the smallest wolf cub that something new and alarming had at last happened in Britain. You see, said the digger, it was a pretty big town. I traced the walls in the fields last year. There was a ditch beyond them. This Uriconium sat behind its wall on the edge of Wales for 500 years, a red-roofed town entered by red brick gates and planned in blocks like a barracks. In the centre, the white stone pillars of the Forum. On market days, its streets were full of goats and sheep and dogs and farm wagons, for it was not a military town like Chester or York, but an experiment in civilization, a town full of imitation Romans, ruled, no doubt, by Romans, but inhabited by Britons dressed in togas. A young Roman official might have written to his mother in Rome, "Dear Mater, we are making something of these natives. The wild ones we keep in the hills and the tame ones in the towns. All the children here speak Latin, and they will all know the story of Romulus and Remus. You remember Marcus, who was at school with me in Rome? He's in Londonium, and I hear that he's going to marry one of these British girls. You must not call them painted savages, mater dear, for I may also marry one myself. They are really lovely, and they get the latest fashion from Rome in 10 days. We have a little Jew here who is making a fortune out of new hair bands, which all the girls of Uriconium are buying. Some of the some of the wealthier natives live in really fine villas outside the walls and talk like senators in the evening, when I often dine with them and show them how to mix falonium. Life here isn't too bad in spots. Thank the pater for the vine slips, which are not growing at all well, for it is cold here at times. So, for 500 years, the ordered life of Rome was lived within these walls. Harvests sold, cattle sold, skins sold, and most men thought it was permanent, perhaps. Only the hills knew differently as they brooded on the sky. Only the grass knew differently. Only the wind from the north, beating on Uriconium in the wild nights, may have whispered of the death of Rome and the coming of the wild men, who were afraid to sleep under a roof with fire and with a sword. "The end of it all," echoed the archaeologist. "Well, see for yourself." He bent down and pointed to a black stratum in the earth. "Fire," he said. The mist blows aside again, and we see the galleys going back to Rome after 500 years, returning to help the dying giant. And over England, knowledge of the most pathetic message a Roman Caesar had ever sent to a province, the message to Honorius. "You must protect yourselves," which was the only thing that Rome had not taught Britain. Then the hill fires burned beyond the wall, and the men who had waited more or less for 500 years came on in a ragged line. "Look here," said the digger. "In this room we found a charred skeleton of a man and a woman. The man was clutching a hoard of coins. Over there we found 2 burned children. That is the end of Uriconium." And the last picture in the mist, the white town in the woodland, lies dead under the moon. The Saxons will not live here. They shun it as though it were haunted, as perhaps it is, by men in white togas from Rome. In broad daylight they wander the ruins, stealing the Roman stones, and a few miles away, on virgin soil, they built Shrewsbury. In a tin shed, the excavators keep all the treasures dug from this dramatic field. There are piles of rich red Simeon bowls, the stock of a hardware shop, because they found bowl piled in bowl. On them, in raised relief, are Pan and Hercules and Diana. Inside them are the names of the ghoulish makers. Ghoulish? Gaulish. There are dozens of Roman tiles which have been stepped on before they were hard. There were dozens of Roman tiles which had been stepped on before they were hard by meddlesome children and animals. The footpads of dogs and the toe marks of children and the nails of Roman sandals are preserved here as if they'd just been made yesterday. So vivid are they that a man looks towards the ruins beyond the door, half expecting to see the child who was playing near the brickworks 1800 years ago, running home to tell his mother that he's hurt his foot. The most important discovery at Uriconium is the huge inscription that was once above the public buildings. It records, in beautifully formed letters, that the local tribe erected it in honour of the Emperor Hadrian in AD 130. Shrewsbury is a lucky town. All these objects are destined for her museum. In a short time it will be possible to see, labelled in glass cases, all that is left of the white town in the woodland. And I've been to Shrewsbury Museum, such as it is. They built a new one now in the music hall place. It was in Rowley's house, which was a beautiful timber-framed place, and that's where I think I saw it. And then they moved it into the music hall, so where the museum is now. And it's got exactly that. It's got that big thing that he talks about that tells it's dedicated to Hadrian. I've walked around there and seen all of that. And what was the other thing I was going to say? I've been to Wroxeter. Oh yes, and the big discovery for me is there was a vineyard at the back of it. Funnily enough, Wroxeter Vineyard, I think it's called. So that's quite interesting. Good afternoon, Richard. Listening to the podcast. Oh yes, you are more than welcome. Adam Walk says, Richard, are you well? Just got back from taking the family on a Thunderbarrows walk. You did some fantastic views up there, especially in this glorious sunshine. Yes, I can well believe that. John Buck, hi from California. Hello, John. This HV Morton fella is a real romantic, isn't he? I mean, in the artistic, not the chocolate box sense. Yes, he certainly is a product of the 1920s, for sure. Had to run to the pharmacy to get some face masks ready for Friday, says Trev. Oh, yes, I do actually have a Julia's mother, very kindly. You will not see me wear this publicly because I absolutely disagree with the whole principle. But obviously I will agree to the rules, but I disagree with them. So I have got a face mask. Thank you very much to Helen, who made it, but you will not see me wear it unless you happen to be in the shop. It's the only place. I just refuse. But everybody's got their own opinion, so we're all entitled to our opinion. But I won't break the law. But I made one from an old sock. Well, there you go. That's even better. I didn't have to pay for that. This was made by Julia's mum. So now there's another one actually. But people have got these what look like neoprene things or lycra ones. Have you seen those that go around? I don't know how they breathe in those. Gosh, it's a right old silly thing. Anyway, we're on part 5 now. I blame it all on the moon and a lobster. When I drew back the bedroom curtains, the moonlight printed itself in green on the floor. It ran over the bed and lay slantways upon a grim wardrobe that stood in the shadow of an ancient oak-beamed room. A proper puckish night, with the green wash over the hill and field. A night for elfin horns and mushroom rings and strange scurryings in thicket and copse. Somewhere near, a dog, unable to sleep and not knowing why, poor little lost wolf, whimpered restlessly. I was laying in a bed thinking of the many bloody things done in Shrewsbury since Offa, king of the Mercians, sailed up the Severn in the 8th century and drove out the Prince of Powys. All the Saxon, Norman, medieval shocks of the Welsh border reverberated in Shrewsbury. At the High Cross, not far away, they barbarously executed David of Wales in 1283. Here also the Duke of Worcester was killed in 1403, and in this same spot the body of Hotspur was exposed for 3 days between 2 millstones, so that all men might know that the king's enemy was dead. Falstaff, you remember, begged that he killed Hotspur after Homeric combat had lasted a long hour by the Shrewsbury clock. That made me smile. I thought of green fields, Mistress Ford and Mistress Page, a buck basket, Ellen Terry, Stratford-on-Avon. How funny my slippers looked, so alone without me, standing in a pool of moonlight. Then I suppose I fell asleep. Do you know what happens? Do you know what it is to awaken suddenly from a deep sleep into instant wakefulness? I imagine that a cold hand had passed over my face. It was so vivid that I dared not open my eyes because I felt that I would see the hand and the thing to which it belonged. All this sounds so fatuous in daylight, but at times, rare times fortunately, how childish, small, helpless and alone a man is in silence of the night. Outside, the dog howled at the moon, that long, miserable whine known in Scotland as the death howl. If, I said to myself, I did not open my eyes and behave like a responsible person, I would lose all self-respect. Oh, on the word 3, I would look. 1, there was undoubtedly something horrible in the room. 2, it might be leaning over the bed, for it seemed so cold and near. Or perhaps the wardrobe was just slowly opening. Or worse, slowly closing. Damn it, 3! The moonlight lay across my face in a white bar, and the room, of course, was empty. If you've ever experienced this waking nightmare, you will sympathise with my frantic attempt to sleep again. In the middle of the night, a strange room can become filled with a horrible tenseness, a feeling of something about to happen. If you open your eyes, the familiar objects take on a hellish intelligence. The furniture seems to have just stopped talking. If you close them, horrors creep towards you from every shadow, and you lie in a cowardly sweat, expecting at any second to be touched or to hear something. I lay there thinking of young Hotspur. I tried systematically to forget his stiff body between the millstones, but back he came till I felt that he was sitting on the bed, trying to tell me something. I suppose that at such moments a man is not so wakeful as he imagines. He lies slightly drugged by sleep, unable to move, enduring the terror in the hope and belief that so long as he lies still, the brooding climax to the atmospheric conspiracy may not, after all, arrive. To see a ghost would not, I think, be a very big shock, but to feel the ghost is horrible. Or are ghosts indigestion? How supremely idiotic you feel in the morning when the sun shines and the postman is rapping down the street. No place could have looked less ghostly than Shrewsbury in the flush of morning. Feeling heartily ashamed and vowing never to eat inland lobster when the moon is full, I set out to explore a town which, for unaffected charm, would be hard to beat in all England. Shrewsbury is delightful because there are more lovely half-timbered houses standing together than it has been my lot to see. And there are no tramcars. The streets of Shrewsbury are undeformed by lines or poles or wires. It takes you sometimes to realise what is so happily missing. The situation of Shrewsbury is worth a study. The men who chose the site knew their job, for here the 7 describes a circle in which on rising ground lies the town within a natural moat, surrounding on all sides by deep water, save for 300 yards to the northeast, where, of course, stands the castle. But the old houses of Shrewsbury are its chief glory. Every American should see them before leaving England. I do not know whether there is a comprehensive book on the old houses of England. If not, it is the duty of some man with time and a camera to write it. Obviously, he predicted that Pevsner, I think who was in the 40s, wasn't it? Pevsner went round and did his books. I've got a Pevsner somewhere. Is that a Pevsner? Nikolai Pevsner? No. That's not it. I've got a Pevsner. I've got a Pevsner on Shrewsbury, funnily enough. Yeah, so every person should see it. Bink. I don't know whether there's a comprehensive book. Well, there is, Pevsner. Here in Shrewsbury, and in fact all over Shropshire, are rows of houses which were standing in Tudor times, and even earlier, still inhabited, still young, every half-century or so, under a new coat of whitewash and tar. There is a charm about a busy, thriving county town like Shrewsbury, quite different from the more obvious charm of a cathedral city. A cathedral overshadows a town. Every town takes second place to its cathedral. Most visitors see the cathedral and nothing else. Your simple country town, which for centuries has been a little metropolis of large agricultural county, teems with the wider life of great charm and interest to the casual observer. In ancient streets, where houses overhang the pavement, nodding forward in the sunshine like tired professors of history, the rich stream of English country life flows on unaltered in the main since Elizabethan times, and in many essentials since the days of Saxon and Norman. I love Shrewsbury early in the morning, when the shops have shut and the girls who have been working all day... Early in the evening, I meant, not the morning. I love Shrewsbury early in the evening, when the shops have shut and the girls who have been working all day come out in their best summer frocks. The local gallants stand at the street corners. The local warriors in khaki stamp or jingle on late pass up and down the main street. You catch a glimpse of the three-cornered stones of communal life. The country squire, the parson, and the country solicitor. The aristocracy, the law, and the church. Every omnibus stage holds a crowd of country people burdened with parcels. The baskets which they brought to market, full of cheese or butter or eggs, are now full of other things: gramophone records and ribbons, wireless valves, and the best Sunday pair of Lil's thread stockings, and a new knitted tie for Dad. Shrewsbury, to these people, is a big place. Her lovely, quiet streets are death traps. They stand patiently waiting for the homeward char-a-bang that has done more than anything since the railway to alter English life, and has done it more effectually by bringing the possibility of the town not to some distant station, but right to the end of a country lane. I've seen more buxom country girls and more hale and hearty old farmers in Shrewsbury than I have ever seen in Devonshire. The cows also are remarkably fine, so I must add are the sheep. Darwin, who was born here, occupies a place of honour on a plinth, his head, the unthinking target of birds of the air, which must have interested him, and his feet shod in the best pair of bronze shoes, complete with laces, it has been my luck to admire. Yes, it's true, there is a statue of Darwin just outside the old school, funnily enough, which is now the library. At night, especially under this witching moon, the streets of Shrewsbury take you back to old England. Butcher Row at night is perfect. From one point of it, there is nothing to be seen that can be later. From one point of it, there is nothing to be seen that can be later than the 15th or early 16th century. Then, with the moonlight falling from oversail stories, slanting from the eaves, in the sharp black and whiteness of the half-timber houses in silent sleep, old memories come towing back to the town, and it takes precious little imagination to see again the long procession of abbot and kings and bishops and male lords who have walked over this stage in their hour, leaving behind them both good and bad. lobster is not essential for a Shrewsbury haunting. Interesting, though, he didn't mention any of the curious things about Shrewsbury. The English Bridge, the Welsh Bridge, either side of the River Severn, the Lion Hotel, of course, Wild Cop, the hill that takes you right up to the top. He mentioned the castle briefly. The coracles that go round it, didn't mention any of that. Hello to John Buck. Ghosts are even in the Bible, are they? We seniors, thank you for wearing a mask near us. Oh, well, there we go. That's quite all right. I'm sure I haven't got anything to pass on that is... probably got loads of terrible things to pass on. Oh, excuse me. Morton says, yes, Buck, but there is something in it. The O's of sightings, etc. Christ himself enters as a ghost. That's true. That is true. Lee Lawson says, hello, got here at last. Had another phone call right at the wrong moment. I know, it's annoying when that happens, isn't it? Charles Darwin, born there. Yes, that's right. He just said that. It's got a big house. I've been to Darwin's house. Not inside it, but I've stood outside. We are on chapter 8. I walk the walls of Chester, skirt Black England, tell the truth about Wigan, visit the lakes, and make a dash at Gretna Green. I guess this is written before what's his name wrote the what's it called, the Long Walk to Wigan Pier, or whatever it's called. So it'll be interesting to see what he says about Wigan then. Well and truly was Chester called by the Britons Caer Leon, the city of the legions. Chester is still the city of the legions, only they come from Louisville, Oshkosh, New York, and Washington. For years, I've heard people describe the wonder of a walk around the walls of Chester. Naturally, the first thing I did when I arrived there was to find the wall, which is not difficult. Chester, as you must know, is the only city in England which retains its medieval wall complete. A high, red stone walk with towers at various strategic points along its course. On one side, a handrail to prevent you from falling into back gardens. On the other, a waist-high barrier from which, in old times, the Cestrians were in the habit of defying their enemy with boiling oil and anything else that came handy. Blessed is he that expecteth little, is a wise maxim that has been drummed into me since I first sat up and wanted the moon. But I've never absorbed it. I realised this on the walls of Chester. Any man might, with justice, I think, expect that as he walked a medieval town wall, something at least heroic would meet his eye. But the walls of Chester give me only a much better idea of other people's washing, the gasworks, and the canal. You see, Chester within the wall remains medieval, but Chester outside the wall is industrial. It has not been possible, with factory sites at £130 an acre, for Chester to retain a wide open space outside the wall, and consequently the wall of Chester stands with its arms around beautiful old Chester, while ugly new Chester peeps over the parapet from the other side. I didn't know that. I've never been to Chester. I've been walking for about 10 minutes admiring the small reddy-brown cathedral through the streets, when I came to a turret approached by a flight of ancient steps, and on the wall was this dramatic inscription: King Charles stood on this tower September 24th, 1645, and saw his army defeated on Roton Moor. Inside the tower, a man was presiding over a little museum. He told me, just as though he was present at the time, that when the Royalist army was riding to reinforce the garrison at Chester, the Roundheads set upon him and routed them with poor King Charles standing on his standing on this tower, watching every move of the game. There were various battlefield relics in the museum, also several Roman antiquities, which take the mind back to the days when the magnificent legion, the 20th, known as the Valeria Vixtrix, was the crack regiment of Diva. I'd been walking for miles, wondering if the wall of Chester ever completes its circle, when I came to that which any exhausted visitor must regard as a poor joke. Here, near the bridge gate, is a long flight of steps arranged in sets of 3, known as the wishing steps. Why? I asked a man who was standing on them, looking as though none of his wishes had come true. Well, he said, in the curious blunt way that they have up there, you have to run up and down again, without taking any breath, and then they say you'll get your wish. I noticed a band of breathless Americans standing on the other side, utterly vanquished. I decided not to try, concluding that the wall of Chester had passed in a superior way, and mentally I decided to try no I read that completely wrong. I decided to try no conclusions with the wall of Chester and passed on in a superior way, mentally deciding to have a wish, for I can never resist these challenges of fate, some morning when I could come fresh and vigorous to the steps. That, however, I learn is not playing the game. You must walk the wall first and then run up and down again, a feat which I shall leave for the natives and to the legions. There is one feature of Chester which, to my mind, is worth 10 walls. There is nothing like it in any English town. The Chester Rose. Chester is a town of balconies. The first impression I received of it was a town whose inhabitants spend a great portion of their lives leaning over oak galleries, smoking and chattering and watching life go by below them in the streets. The rows are simply long, covered arcades formed by running a highway through the first stories of a street of old buildings. You mount from the roadway to the rows on frequent flights of stone steps and find yourselves in the strangest shopping streets in England. They are the best shops hidden away in the darkness of the ancient arcades, and it is possible to shop dry-shod in the worst weather. There is a peculiar charm about the rows. They are not typically medieval because there is no record of any other street of this kind in the Middle Ages, yet they impart a singular impression of medievalism. Through the oak beams which support the galleries, you see black and white half-timbered houses on the opposite side of the street, with another row cut through the first floor, on whose balconies people are leaning and talking and regarding the flow of life. The main streets of Chester give you the impression that a huge galleon has come to anchor there with easy, leisurely passengers leaning on the deck rails. This peculiar feature of Chester has worried the antiquities more than anything. Theories to explain how and why these peculiar streets grew up are numerous, and none of them definite. Who knows why they were built? Said a local antiquity. One theory is that the ruins of the Roman buildings inspired the architects of later times. Another theory is that these arcades were formed during the Middle Ages to provide street defence against Welsh raiders. A third theory explains them on the grounds that traders erected their buildings on the ruins of the Roman castrum, the most valuable ground naturally in the town, and as other traders were attracted to the same profitable site, a further row of buildings rose up on the ruins behind the first, forming, which of course is but a step, to a covered arcade running the length of the street, but no one can say for certain how they evolved. The rows are one of the architectural mysteries of England. Chester is as medieval as Clovelly is quaint. There is no getting away from it. At night, a walk through the rows is eerie. These long tunnels are almost pitch black. When the shops are closed, they are deserted, for the Cestrians then take to the normal roadway, and you can walk on and on along this ancient highway through colonnades upheld by vast oak beams, half expecting to hear the scuffle of hired assassins and the grasp of a man with a dagger in his neck. Or even the gasp of a man with a dagger in his neck. I have yet to meet a more dramatic street. Chester is so accustomed to ancient things that no one considers it strange to drink coffee in a 20th century crypt. This is a beautiful vaulted crypt which has been converted into a restaurant. I went there and sat utterly crushed by my surroundings. I looked round for the monks, but only saw young men and women taking, so it seemed, sacrilegious sips of tea and eating cream cakes. One of the happiest memories of my search will be the recollection of the many times I have hung out of a hotel in windows before going to bed, listening to the night sounds of the town and cities and villages. I must write a story about them one day. At night, when the tram cars have stopped running and the crowds have gone home and the last American has drunk the last highball in the smoking room, ancient cities like Chester come most vividly to life. So you must leave me in Chester under a big round moon, leaning out of the soft coolness of the night, watching the Valeria Victrix stack spears in the main street, and stand back for orders to be found one of the oldest cities in England. And it was on the Holy Dee, the broad, slow river that winds around Chester, that King Edgar in 973 gave away his character to posterity by being rowed in his barge by tributary princes. And it was in Chester. I could go on through history picking out little pictures of Chester, but it is so late and the moon is riding high above this silent city where old houses dream of old streets with their roots among the little red tiles of Rome. It's all very quaint, isn't it? It's all very quaint. The rows are great, says Mark. I've never been. I must go and have a look. Oh, Orwell's The Road to Wigan Pier. That was it. If Chester is the only Roman city where the walls are complete, I think Chester is the only Roman city where the walls are complete that you can walk all the way round. Oh, that's marvellous. In 100 years, it's still there. I've been to Gretna Green, but not Wigan. I've not been to either, actually. Many happy years in Chester in the 90s and 2000s, performed at the Chester Fringe many times. Oh, well done. John Buck says, love your walks. Wish I understand your dislike to walk in a field of cows. I've herded them on a farm, never a problem. Well, it's a funny thing, that, isn't it? Because every time I mention I have a fear of cows, there's a lot of people that also share that fear. And there are newspaper links or links to newspaper headlines where people have been trampled, hurt, or even terrible, been killed by them. So, you know, I don't think it's as you know, some people maybe they can get on with them and other people just don't. So I don't know how it works. How are we doing? There, we got enough time to do a bit more. What chapter are we on? I can't remember. Is this chapter 8? Chapter 8, Part 2. The change of country at the Cheshire-Lancashire border is more startling than the change between Cornwall and Devon, or between the sweet lowland counties and the wild marches of Wales. Here, the traveller enters industrial England. I looked at a map. I was passing between Liverpool on the left and Manchester on the right, and about 16 miles from both cities. Far off to the left I could see the Mersey estuary, with red smokestacks rising above the flat lands by the sandy shore. To the right there was an ominous grey haze in the sky, which meant Manchester. For months I had motored through a green England which might never have known the Industrial Revolution. Round Bristol, it's true, I saw factories. I left Birmingham on my right and saw no trace of that monster as I went into Old England. Here was New England, an England of crowded towns, of tall chimneys, of great mill walls, of canals of slow black water, an England of grey, hard-looking little houses in interminable rows, the England of coal and chemicals, of cotton, glass and iron. Yet how difficult it is to kill an English field, to stamp out the English grass, and to deform an English lane. Even here, within 16 miles of the two great giants of the north, men were raking hay in a field within a gunshot of factory chimneys. With the beautiful old England that I love so fresh in mind, I stood ready to be horrified by the Black Belt. Yet, strangely, I stood impressed and thrilled by the grim power of these ugly chimneys, rising in groups, by the black huddle of factories, and the still, silent wheels at pit mouth, and the drifting haze of smoke. At Warrington I heard the clap-clop of clogs. At Warrington I saw mill girls with shawls over their heads. At Warrington I smelt for the first time the characteristic aroma which permeates the industrial towns and villages of Lancashire: fried fish and chips. Mill towns look grandly impressive from the hill, but when you drive into their streets, the stark ugliness of the long... I apologise for that. That's Windows Defender coming up for some reason. Mill towns look grandly impressive from the hill, but when you drive into the streets, the stark ugliness of the long, barracky, prison-like houses run up so quickly to serve the servants of the machines gives you an ache. The only consolation is that these monster towns and cities of the north of England are a mere speck in the amazing greenness of England. Their inhabitants can be lost in green fields and woodland within a few minutes. London is much more distant from the real wood than Warrington. On Sundays, in all the grey villages of Lancashire, the miners sit on their haunches against the walls, their hands between their knees. They are the only Englishmen who squat like Arabs. In the centre of nearly every group is a white whippet on a lead. The men sit and smoke, regarding the highway with a certain bright expectation. I saw with great interest a signpost marked Wigan. Who could resist a glimpse of Wigan? We're going to have to wait till tomorrow for a glimpse of Wigan, I'm afraid. For I will pause our little soiree into 1920s England in the Midlands, in the Black Country. In the Black Country? So, yeah, interesting stuff. Many, many happy years in Chester. Oh, yes, that's good. Isn't there a pair of manky old canal Wigan? Amazing that it's signposted from the M6. Morton Lewis says, Turbo, I spent 4 years teaching in Wigan. It's a wild place. It's called Cowboy Town by most posh Cheshire country folk. Is that right? Graham Cass says, you ain't seen our beach huts. 7 deep in places. Ooh, hooray, Lancashire, God's own country. On the 7th day, God created Manchester. John Buck says, I worked with dairy cattle and they were easy to work with. Oh, I'm very pleased. I guess they recognised you and knew you. They probably were going to be quite easy, weren't they? You see a stranger, they might be inquisitive, and if the stranger's slightly nervous, perhaps they sense the nerves, and who knows. I was booted out of Bolton, says TurboStream, at 18 months. Oh, blimey. Thank you for reading, and you're enjoying it. Wiggy is great for girls and boozing, says Morton Lewis. Right. Girls. What about boozing girls? Is it good for that? I dare say it is. Anyway, there we go. That's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. We got the week off to a cracking start. I hope you've enjoyed today's video with Floating Our Boat stars, Fran and Rich. Absolutely lovely couple. It was great to meet them. And tomorrow I've got a lovely walk heading down to Ovingdean for you. And I will be off to see Ollie the bell ringer, young Ollie, who was 15 when I last saw him. I don't know if he's going to be 16. I think it's not quite a year, but it's some time has passed. So I'm doing a video with him tomorrow. And I've got the Vogue show tonight, something to look forward to if you're into that sort of stuff. I think there's some videos. I'm not sure if anything's come in as yet. I need to check that. But anyway, that's it for this live. Thank you very much. It's been great fun. I am feeling a bit tired, actually, which is probably why I've not managed to do any silly voices. But hey-ho, we carry on. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon and the sunshine if you've got it. If you've got the rain, send some this way. I need to go and water my garden now, such as my garden is. It's only about 4 foot square, but there we go. Anyway, take care. Dogs are a big issue for walkers in Cattlefield, says that lovely Julie. Oh yeah, keep them on a lead. Right, that's it from me. Thank you very much. I will catch up with you later on. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.